Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job.
Hello and welcome back to Homeschool Together. Thank you for joining us. For Ariel and I, it's been nearly 2 months since we've been in the recording studio because we were productive and smart and intelligent and pre-recorded a bunch of podcasts so we could have a nice holiday break. But we are back in the room with so much stuff. Ariel, there's a 3D printer off to your left. That's super cool.
Yep. That we've actually gotten in the way of recording a few nights because it's been printing something. And we sat down to record and I was like,
let's print. And it's like,
I did not think this through.
So if before we get into today's episode and a little Shakespearean in the title today, if you want to try to support the podcast here in the new year, you've got those New Year's resolutions and you said, hey, I want to support those content creators before they're all AI bots and they're taking away all the jobs of the content creators.
Still not AI.
Still not AI. We're 100% flesh and blood. We have our link down below in the Gumroad store if you're thinking about going around the world or comboing. Ariel, why would that be super
Or buying us a cup of tea.
Yeah, exactly. So comboing, Ariel, that sounds like a mashup. That sounds to combo or not to combo.
That's right. Well, we're kind of the poster children for combining curriculums.
We are.
And, this is really about when is it the right thing to do? And I think a combo, there's kind of multiple flavors of a combo. There's either, inner mashing them like we've done with,
interleaving them. Yeah,
right, like Torchlight and Build Your Library or Build Your Library and Blossom and Root. We've done that before. And then I think there's also, the way that we kind of take like Right Start and then do Math Mammoth in just the same way we do AAR and then also do Explode the Code. That's also a flavor of comboing. So we really want to talk about don't just do as we do, but maybe do as we say, or, assess what's right for you. Cause sometimes it's like we have a great episode. I think you should link in the show notes. It's about FOMO, because that I want to do everything is one of the big reasons a lot of people combo, but there are, there's lots of pluses and minuses to it. And there's times when it's better and not for your homeschool.
Yeah. When you're doing this type of, explicit combo and you are very often building some new type of scope and sequence in your homeschool. And that can add a lot of time. I think that was one of the things we realized when we did the mega combo, that the curriculum that was normally 39 weeks became more like 60 something, 70 weeks. Yeah. And if you think about, adding and doing things together, you got to think about, the pros and cons. So let's go ahead and a little bit into the pros, let's talk about why you would want a combo. Why would you want to bring these two things together or multiple things? You could even bring 3 or 4 things together and amalgamate some, new creation that fits what you guys need. Why would you want to do that?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest advantages is having a greater scope. So this is a perfect example of this is when we did the prehistory with Build Your Library and Blossom and Root. Build Your Library had a 6-week prehistory that very briefly touched on dinosaurs and, was kind of, it was like an introductory week, some dinosaurs, and then 4 weeks of early man. And it skipped over so much. Whereas Blossom and Root had this great you didn't even get to humans. It was I think it was a 16-week curriculum, and they didn't get to humans until week 13. And there was plenty of weeks on dinosaurs, and they're all the different ages that I didn't know anything about. And so we felt okay, the two together, Build Your Library gave a great introduction to early humans, and Blossom and Root gave this great human existence history. And we thought, okay, cool. So we can really broaden our scope by taking these two and mashing them together, overcoming some content gaps and just really making sure that we and our kids had a really well-rounded understanding of prehistory.
I think it's one of the best ways to do it. Next thing that I think you would want to think about is this kind of varied learning approaches. And this is something that we do with our math curriculum, where we take a more hands-on, tactile, manipulative heavy math program, and then we kind of dovetail it with more of like a traditional practice problems and doing more problems with the math mammoth. And whether you do it first or second, whatever order you choose to do it, whatever fits best with your learner, is the thing you should probably do. But for us, having those two different styles has been a nice play, because it's a change of pace. It helps drive that idea of mastery that we're always looking for. For my daughter, it's almost like a gear down. It's an easier section, and it feels like she's building her confidence and she's getting that experience as she gets ready to move on to the next level and the next level. I find that little bit of time, because we do move, if you do find that you move quickly through a curriculum, you can afford a little bit of time to be creative in doing something again or moving a little bit faster. In this case, I like to take the additional time that we have earned and put that towards mastery and building confidence, because I feel that for her and her learning styles and learning needs really helps her. So when you're thinking about comboing, understanding the varied, learning approaches might be a way that, or a reason you do that. Now we do it sequentially, but you may choose to do it interleaved, where you're doing, maybe a unit or two in the Right Start Math or whatever math program you have. And then you go ahead and dovetail that and blend that with maybe a lesson or a unit in the Math Mammoth.
Or some other workbook style.
Exactly.
We use this for mastery, right? To give our daughter these different approaches to kind of come at it from different angles. But this is also a great way to use it is if you are schooling multiple learners together in the same subject and they each have different learning styles, then you can combo different curriculums that each are going to play to their strengths. So that's also, if you're trying to do kind of like family style learning, and we're going to have a whole series of episodes coming up about that. So if you're looking to combine multiple ages or your whole family together, we've got a really great series coming up. So stay tuned. But that's another great reason is you've got multiple kids. They each have their own needs. Why choose just something that works for just this one child when you can, combo, and everyone can get a little bit of what their, best tuned learning style, teaching approaches.
And another thing that, when we think about comboing, we think about kind of what you said earlier, that idea of layering in new things. And sometimes in our families, we may find a curriculum that we really like, but we may also want to find other perspectives and diverse perspectives. And we may want to layer in books from different areas, from different people, different voices, whatever that might be, that you feel something might be lacking. You can go ahead and combine those or add in an extra book. We do this a lot on when we vlog around the world. We are very often ignoring the book selection here and bringing in another book selection here. And that's a very easy thing for you to do at home, and when you're in your homeschool and you're doing your planning, to go ahead and say, well, this book doesn't really fit the needs here. Maybe I can find a book in this region that would better fit, what we're learning or what we're doing.
Yeah, and history is a great example of adding diverse perspectives. So it's awesome to, pull in two different curriculums that are kind of coming from two different angles, read about the same thing, and the amount of discussion and critical thinking and all of that goes into it. It's great to see, especially, history is defined by who recorded it and what their perspective was. And so it's really amazing to see these different perspectives. And sometimes you can get, make sure you don't just get a one-sided view by bringing in, other curriculum and combining things together.
Yeah. As we've closed out this direct learning session, we've talked about the various things we've combined. And why don't you head down into the comments below and tell us, things that you've combined. We've done obviously the round the world journeys. Yeah. We've done the history combos with the ancient civilizations. We have done math combos, which we've talked. We've also done ELA combos where we've done all about reading with Explode the Code. So why don't you hop down in the comments below and share what you guys have done as well.
yeah, for those of you listening on YouTube,
Yeah.
and if you're listening just on the podcast,
On
bring it up
Facebook.
on the Facebook group. You know, I love to hear what people are comboing, and not just what you're comboing, but why.
Exactly.
What's your motivation for that?
So when you combo, we did the vlog around the world, showcased a lot of great things. We also talked about things at the end when we did all of our wrap-up videos, some of the challenges that you would experience in that. Obviously, we brought it up kind of at the beginning before we started. The first kind of big challenge would be the kind of the time management. And I think what kind of dovetails, within that is the planning aspect, right? There's so much work.
It can be a huge undertaking. If we're going to do something sequentially, like, right start Math Mammoth we talked about,
That's so much easier.
pretty easy.
Yeah.
The prehistory wasn't too bad. Around the world was a lot. So, it can definitely be overwhelming on the planning side, because you can't just open a curriculum and be like, okay, here's what we're doing. We're just going to follow along this week. Next week we're going to turn to the next page. It's like, when we did Build Your Library and Torchlight together, the first time we did Around the World, I had to make like 5 binders, and I had pages from each curriculum, and I was inserting them where they needed to be and making notes as we changed chapter books so that they would span multiple weeks and it would still work. And it was a lot of work. I'm happy we did it, but yeah, so there's that aspect of the planning, and that can be kind of overwhelming to think about. And, as we've shared on this, and if you haven't heard this before, if those combo curriculums are something you want to do, if you want to email us proofs of purchase, I'm happy to share the spreadsheet of how we comboed to save you a little bit of effort. I unfortunately can't share like our Trello planning sheets. I wish that I could, but that's against their rules. So, but yeah, so that can be really challenging. But then you're right, the time management aspect of it. The prehistory study ended up being 19 weeks or something like that when it was all said and done. Which is much longer than the original study, either one of the other studies. And our Around the World, right, was like 65 weeks or something, which is why our new Trekking the World, as we're doing this with our younger learner again, we're taking a subset of countries, because we did kind of burn out by the end, which is the second point.
The next thing is the idea of overwhelming. A lot of times when we think we want to combo a bunch of things, we got to be concerned that all of a sudden it's becoming too much. Remember, in this homeschool experiment, a lot of these things, when we are concerned about, the impact on the student, it's also the impact on the parent as well.
Sure.
It's overwhelming in both circumstances. You just talked about the idea of all the planning. If you go ahead and do all that prep work ahead of time, that's great. But what happens if things start to change halfway through and you realize certain aspects of the curriculum aren't working, and you've got to pivot, and you've done all this work? You're going to feel overwhelmed. There's going to be a little bit of like buyer's remorse there. There's going to be some like sunk cost fallacy issues of what you've done. And I know a lot of us have those emotions when we are working through that, but also thinking about how that impacts the student with respect to like the glazed over look. I don't even know what country I'm in anymore. It's like, where are we from? Where are we this week? So those become very things. And also, when you get into a rhythm, we're like, okay, we're doing this country, and you read a bunch of books, you do similar activities, and we're all guilty of it. Like, hey, yeah, let's print off some. You see it on our vlog. I was like, what did we do for art this week? Well, Mr. Matt went to Google and said, here's some princesses from these countries. Let's color them in, because, I get tired and I don't want to do all the hard work and all the difficult finding this cool activity or this cool activity. It's challenging. Sometimes we get into these routines where we kept doing the same thing, and the kids kind of get bored at what we're doing. And gosh, we're 28 weeks into a 58-week curriculum, and they're already bored. That can feel really daunting on you. It can start to overwhelm. You're overwhelming the child, and also you're overwhelming yourself.
It can be hard to keep things fresh. That's for sure. And especially when you're choosing to make a combination, you may be extending parts of the curriculum. So that's a lot of work on your own. The other thing is, how much does this combo align with your goals? Like, we need to keep our long-term objectives. If you're wanting to do your 4-year history cycle and you want to get to, this place by this date so that the next child can move to this, you've got plans, right? I have long-term plans for what I think we're going to be studying together.
Especially with you larger families, like what you just said with the managing multiple students, that can be very, that can be very challenging.
Right. So we want to get them to a certain level in math, let's say, by a certain time. So if I combine too many second grade math curriculums, we are never going to get to, or we're going to delay when we get to third grade math. Now, maybe that's totally the right move. I mean, for us, as we've discussed, it is absolutely the right thing because our daughter needs that reinforcement. She needs the practice. This system works really, really well for us. But for another family, that might be unnecessary. And if you're taking, more than the standard year to get through like just right start, then you're going to add math 2 or whatever. Then, you may be running behind what, goals you have for yourself or your student or testing that you're going to be doing or whatever. So it can just depend on what your goals are, but keep an eye on that and make sure that if you're going to combine that you're aligning with your goals.
Yeah. With goals, I really feel that because a lot of times I know we're homeschoolers. We don't really care about grades. We don't care about grade level. Those things don't matter as much for us as the experience and it's all the life skills and everything. But in the back of my mind, I always do have the standards. I do think about, what do they need to accomplish to get to the things we want to do. And you're absolutely right. Having goals inside the head on what we're trying to accomplish in the year is something we always think about. Fortunately for us, for math, our daughter's ahead, and she continues to kind of stretch as we move forward. And so for me, I'm not really as worried there. For me, I always use the analogy of a coal shoveling man on the train. And I just keep that train moving, right? Reading, on the other hand, is something that I am very aware of where she is at the grade level. How is she progressing? That is something that I focus on deeply. With my youngest, I feel like I'm very, very, lucky to have her. I always made the joke of like I struggled with the reading on the oldest for 4 years, and I told you I don't know if I have it in me to go another 4 years to teach another kid to read, and this one's running a lot faster and a lot quicker. And so, for her, I'm really just trying to feel out how she's going to progress and move forward, and is she going to be an accelerated learner? And how can I, facilitate that and move that forward? And thinking about goals and how do you achieve those things and how do you layer in all the curriculum? And, and I'm thinking back, because a lot of us are in homeschooling. This might be our first child, right? We may have a kindergartner, we may have a first grader, we may have just pulled our kid out of sixth grade, and this might be our first year. Understanding, what does success look like in a year? Understanding, how can I do the things I need to do? Do I have some learning gaps that I need to close? How can I do that through, workbooks and other type of things? So really setting those goals and understanding where you are can really make determinations on how you combo things and maybe how you layer things in. Like for example, right now I'm comboing workbooks with my ELA curriculum, and I am backfilling probably mistakes or gaps in things that I didn't do over the last couple of years, like notably spelling. Spelling and handwriting was something I really don't think I did enough of it for the last couple of years. And not that I'm catching her up or not that she's behind or anything like that, but it's, I had an N=1 student, and you're out there right now with your N=1 child, and you're like, okay, well, I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to make any mistakes. Maybe you have to layer in different skills and understand all the things and all the goals you need to achieve, and maybe layering in different things and comboing different things. Like, for example, I'm doing easier level spelling books for my daughter, like first grade, second grade type of stuff. She's at third grade level because I want her to, again, like we talked about earlier, to have that confidence to achieve those goals, and I'm layering those in. So as she's progressing, I feel like I can lift up her skills without the heavy pressure of getting her to maybe what some would deem grade level. And I'm able to do that slowly without wearing her out. I'd rather make her upset that she has to do these easy workbooks. Yeah. Because I'm building that foundation.
Yeah, that's true.
And because I know she moves quick and it's not super critical, her reading's really good, her handwriting maybe not so great, but we're starting to lift it up. But I don't have to put that undue pressure on her because I just got her over the reading hurdle and she's starting to enjoy that, and I'm enjoying that with her. I want to bring up the handwriting without the pressure. So when you're thinking about goals and layering and comboing things, I think it's a very natural thing to do to, be concerned and be aware of like, okay, what am I doing and how this could be impacting my learner.
I think comboing really, if you're not trying to go for reinforcement, you're not trying to go for varying learning styles. So it's not any of our, like the way we use reading and math. And it's not necessarily to get diverse perspectives, but if it's just because the way that I felt anyway, when I comboed Torchlight and Build Your Library for level K, was I just felt like they were both so good, and I didn't really want to miss either of them. And I knew that our daughter was going to really enjoy it. And I also felt that going to one country each week and then switching countries every week was going to be jarring for her, and she was going to want to sit more in that space and enjoy that country and the food and the media and all that stuff. So I really felt like for me, comboing those two was a way of really just enhancing one of them, whichever one was you call the main, let's say Build Your Library. It was a way of enhancing it without having to find all of the resources just myself, because Torchlight had such a great book list and had great media recommendations and things. So I was able to kind of use those together. And I also thought that was a gap filling as well, because Kay has some cool stuff about ethics and things, which I thought was neat. So, that's another reason. If you think that your child is just like, you've got a kid who is just super duper duper into some topic, and any curriculum you find is never going to delve deep enough, then you can either go out and find all these extra resources yourselves. And I actually think this would be a great podcast talking about how to extend curriculums and expand them. I'm going to add it to our list because I've done a lot of that as well. You may just find another curriculum on the same subject and throw them together, because then you have double the resources and you didn't have to do all of that work, and you can dig in with your space-loving kiddo or whatever it is and really just have the time to sit in that space and learn much more about it than you would if you just did just one curriculum.
I think you've hit it really strong here. I think the two paths a lot of people approach this from is, the fun level is what you're kind of articulating here. The fun, the experiential, having a good time and enjoying it and being enriching, and, that it can be varied experiences and all these great things. And then the other side of it is that we're trying to approach it from a technical standpoint of like, okay, where are my gaps? I'm trying to fix issues and find issues with my learner and get them either to lift them up, because a lot of times we're finding a lot of homeschool students are being pulled out of school and now they're starting to homeschool now, and that might be because there's gaps, or there might be some learning issues there, and you want to lift them up and close whatever issue. So you're kind of like approaching it from a technical teaching side of the house, where you're trying to fill in things and try to improving things, and then the other side of it is we may be comboing from just an enjoyment standpoint. And thinking about those in both dimensions and finding out what you need to do, approaching it from those two standpoints, I think is a common practice that a lot of people are seeing. We've done it in our own homeschool.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And I think that the danger comes when you as a parent see two curriculums and you think they both look great and you can't decide between the two of them. So you're going to just do them both. And there's kind of two ways of doing this, right? You can either take all of everything from and just, do them both in their entirety, which is the way that we've comboed a couple of those curriculums. Or you can say, I can't decide between these. I'm just going to take the best pieces of both, in which case you're adding a lot of planning work for yourself, but maybe that's, for the best, because you're getting a really tailored experience. It's just what you want. So you're taking these two curriculums and putting them together in just the right configuration for you and your learner. But if you're doing them all of them, and doing both and kind of just, basically doubling the effort, I think the thing to be cautious of, because I know I am guilty of this myself, is I think this is really cool. I think both of these curriculums are both really great. I can't decide. My kid could really care less about this thing. She's the older one anyway, is fairly amenable to learning about kind of anything. So that got me in a certain amount of trouble because I would be like, oh, okay, well, gosh, I can't decide again about this one or this one.
Yeah.
Let's just do them both, or I'll just take pieces from both. I was really doing that for myself and not for her. So I think if the hacking apart two things and putting them together in the right configuration, if that excites you and it works for you and it makes you feel good about taking the best of those both worlds,
especially if that's going to motivate you as a teacher, it's going to come out in the instruction and the guidance in the homeschool. I think that's a great thing.
Right. I think if you've got the time and the interest and you want to take the best of maybe more than two, several curriculums, and you want to put things together and make your own thing, I think that's awesome. But if you're just going to not, your fear of missing out, you want to do every bit of everything, and I've been there, just be cautious and know, is this for my kid? Is this for me? I mean, I knew that our daughter was really going to enjoy the country study, but doing all of everything was really for me. And that's why it ended up taking us like 60 something weeks, because I was like not willing to miss even a single week, even if I knew our daughter's not going to miss it if we, truncated this list a little bit, since we are combining and taking more time in each country. But I went and I did the whole thing because, well, we were doing it for the podcast and the vlog and everything. And also I did not want to miss anything. So there's so many things to learn. There's an infinite amount of things to learn. Don't have that fear of missing out, because I know it's really hard. I curate curriculums as well. I know exactly how it goes. But just be cautious about your motivations, I think is my best advice.
Well, so that there may be some parents out there, or maybe some individuals who have comboed in the past. Maybe they didn't have a great run of it, but they're now approaching something else that they think they might have to. Or there may be a parent out there looking to combo. They found us on the interwebs and on the YouTubes, and they dialed up this podcast and they want to listen before they hop on Around the World or their own ancient civilizations. What are some tips and tricks, and maybe some tips for success, I think, that can help them? I mean, there's obviously we can never give you the formula. This is true about everything, right? I cannot give you the formula that is going to work in your homeschool. If there's anybody out there telling you they can do that, that's a little snake oily for me.
Yeah,
because all of our kids are different. You and I are different. Every homeschool is different. Every needs of their family are different. The environment is different. The reasons for homeschooling are all very different. Because there's that level of complexity out there, I cannot give you exactly how to do your stuff. But if you're thinking about tailoring and combining two curriculums together, let's think about some ways you can start thinking as you approach that problem.
Yeah, I think it's really good to take the two curriculums and really look at the strengths of those. Is it because I love this one because it has a strong book list, and I love this one because it has great hands-on activities and it has media links, and the other one doesn't. And so the strengths and the gaps of each curriculum, I think, are really important, because I'm the first one to be like, ooh, shiny, new curriculum, and I want it. But really look at it and say, like, okay, this is what this curriculum does really well. Here's the areas that it's missing, and the other ones that you're interested in. And are there ways that they complement one another? Because I think that's a great way to assess whether it's right to put them together. The other thing is thinking about your learner, assess their learning style and how and their strengths and their needs, and how that works with both. I've seen some people combine like 3 curriculums together, so it could be more than 2. Yes, there's some of you out there. If you want to do more than one, I think you really want to look at them kind of critically, because look, if one has a really strong book list or something, you could always add another book. If one curriculum has extra activities, you could always find a couple of crafts that you could add. So you can enhance things. Is it worth actually putting the whole kit and caboodle together, or taking pieces out of both of them? I tend to think, especially with the digital curriculums, that they're pretty cheap. And so if there's things I like from both of them, I mean, might as well, support those creators, purchase that curriculum, and then I can take books as I want willy-nilly. I can take activities as I want. So if you're going to do this, identify your strengths and weaknesses of the curriculum. And then the next thing is think about how you're going to plan this. Are you going to pre-plan by weeks?
Yeah.
Are you going to just kind of ad hoc pull things? I think that's kind of what we're doing this go round in the Trekking the World. The first time we did Around the World, I planned it to the hilt.
You did a lot of planning, but it eventually like kind of boiled down. You were about 4 weeks ahead of us.
Right. And so
When
I
you're-
would plan like a month.
I mean, you had the basic structure set out, but when you're talking about like queuing up books at the library, all the nitty gritty things about doing a very complex curriculum like that, where we have, readers and books and all these type of things, and maybe even buying more spines that maybe layer in. Those are like the nuts and bolts aspects of doing those types of things. But with respect to planning, you kind of said, okay, we're going to do these. This is the sequence of countries. And then about 4 weeks or so you've had, but this time, because we've already, we're veterans of the Around the World journey. We have a little bit, and we pull from our guides as well, our resource guides that are linked down below on the Gumroad store. And our prior experience and all the work that you've done, you can go maybe 2 weeks or a week.
Well, and I don't really now. It's like I'm using the resource guides and I'm pulling some books from there. We already own the spines from the last time we did it. And I'm not saying it's page 43 to 46 or whatever. I'm just saying like you can find the pages on, whatever country we're studying. I leave it to you. Here's all the spines. Yeah. So I'm more free flow planning with it, and I'm pulling things from different curriculums that I remember that we liked. So just think about your planning style too, because if you choose to combo, especially if you're interlacing them, think about your planning style and how you're going to work that, and don't start something that's going to be something you can't hold at like long term. Because I definitely the way I started planning the first time we did Around the World, I was never able to keep up with it. It was way too much.
Well, and I think a lot of that dovetails into the next key or tip for success, which is being flexible and adaptable. I think we kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, but that flexibility, I think, is the biggest thing, because not only, as you start the curriculum, you're going to discover things that don't work, but also you're going to discover things that you're missing or interests that your learner wants, and you may have to bring those in. You may even have to pivot from certain spines into different spines, different types of crafts that maybe you had totally planned out for a long time. It's amazing to think about like how you move through such a mammoth undertaking. I mean, obviously, if you have a smaller curriculum, if it's like, oh, I'm putting my Explode the Code with a little bit of a spelling curriculum that I've custom made, okay, that's not as big of a combo. But when you're doing these like 50-week things, I mean, that's a lot of work, and you got to always approach it and just be a little, adaptive, being flexible. I think flexibility for me has been the number one thing I've learned over the last 5 years of homeschooling, and the last year of homeschooling 2 children, or the last maybe 6 months of homeschooling 2 children, is total flexibility. Like I've had to become a lot more chill with like having, days where I've had to pivot or activities that don't work. Yeah. When it was just 1, it was none. When it's 2, it's a school. It's like put that one on a t-shirt. But it's like, I've had to be really flexible. I think that's been the biggest thing, and just kind of move and go. Also, the other thing too is being flexible is understanding I don't have as much time with the one that I used to have.
Yeah, no, it's totally true.
Right. And so there may have been a reason why we went as fast as we were able to go, with certain subjects, was because it was just one. It was easy. I put all my effort into it. Now I've got to be like, well, I'm sorry, your sister now needs to learn about fractions, and you need to go do this worksheet. And it hurts me to like, I don't know, maybe it's like my moment where I'm like coming to grips with that, like, I don't have a kindergartner anymore. Yeah. I have a 3rd grader, and the 3rd grader.
You also do have a kindergartner.
But I also have a kindergartner. And it's like, at that age, if you think about them in the public schools, they're doing workstations and they're doing, cooperative, activities, and they're working on computers and doing these stuff. And like, they're independent. They can do things like this, and like telling her to go and read those 4 pages and come back and tell me what they were about it hurts my soul, because it's like, I'm not there with her. And
right, you can't be there with her for every moment one-on-one, because you have 2 now.
But it's also that letting go. It's like, I used to be so, I wanted to validate her learning,
Sure.
right? And I wanted to do it in the moment, but now it's like, well, she can go learn for an hour or two on her own, or not 2 hours, but like, half hour, 20 minutes, and then come back to me. And I always wanted to validate in the moment because I didn't want things to go wrong, and then she goes off in the wrong direction.
Well, she's a very emotional kid too, so if something goes wrong, then she's in tears.
But these are, it's like for me, anyway, I'm rambling about about my, my experiences, but it's being flexible, I think, is a key thing, and that really helps.
I think it is too. And when we talk about these different curriculums, especially too, if you are deciding to do a combo sequentially or whatever, we've talked about having these, varied learning styles and stuff, right? That's how we use, Right Start and Math Mammoth. But one thing that you should be really cognizant of is you don't want to combo something that's going to change the way that they learned. Mm-hmm. So if the two and their different approaches are teaching the same subjects, but in ways that are going to be confusing or conflicting for your learner, be really cautious about that. It's okay to say, hey, let's approach this from several angles, but we don't want to, there's like the difference right between like the new math and the regular, there's all the math things. Mm-hmm. Just make sure that that whatever you combo complements each other. Yeah. Even if, and that's what we've really found with Right Start and Math Mammoth, they complement each other very well because one is giving this great foundation and conceptual understanding, and it's hands-on and it's one-on-one and all this stuff. And the other one is all the practice problems. And so we really like that. Similarly, we like that for All About Reading and Explode the Code together, because All About Reading is that hands-on phonics and you're learning all of it, and then Explode the Code gives lots of practice. So those ones work really well, but just be careful if you're going to combo that they've got to coordinate in some way.
Complement each other.
Complement, right, because we just don't want to confuse the kids by like, well, but wait a minute, I learned in this program that it was this way, and now I'm doing this one, and it's totally different. So, just be aware of that, especially when it comes to math and reading. And that's not so much the same deal in history and things. And I think if you did 2 history curriculums and they taught the same event differently, that would just be a great source of discussion. But especially in math and reading, just make sure that we're not doing anything to confuse them.
Exactly. And I think the best way to do that is our final tip for success when you're doing your comboing is regular evaluations.
Yeah.
Really just checking in with, because a lot of times when you're doing homeschooling, you can just get into the weeds and you just forget, like, where are we and how far have we gone? What are we doing?
And is this working for us?
You're just plowing forward like you're a giant combine, and you're just like harvesting, and you lose the sight of where you've come from and where you're going. And sometimes you need to stop and stand up and say, okay, are we doing a good job? Are you enjoying this? And kind of going back to what you said before, getting that feedback, asking, maybe asking a kindergartner if they wanted to combo kindergarten space. They don't really care too much. You're the facilitator. You're doing this great thing. Oh, let's go around the world. I think you'll like this. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. We've heard people who said their kids don't like it. Some kids who absolutely adore it. When they're getting to like 2nd and 3rd and 4th grades, 5th grade, 6th grade, it's almost like it would be rude not to include them into, trying to make decisions on, the history curriculum that they're doing. Sure. Or, hey, Johnny, do you like Beast Academy? Are you enjoying Khan Academy? Are you enjoying Saxon Math? I mean, are you enjoying this?
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that you have to be like, I'm over the moon for math, Dad. Everything I've always wanted to, in math.
But does this work for you? Does this make sense to you?
Yeah. Are you finding that you're struggling a lot? Like, getting that type of feedback can really help not only you as a teacher, because, through assessment, we learn so much. And it's not just something we do at the end of the year. It's something we're constantly doing. And in some respects, and I know in some classrooms, they want to do this multiple times a lesson, is to check in with the student, find out where they are as you're, evaluating what they're doing. Assessment is super key. You don't have to do it every day. I think that might be excessive, but, every few weeks you close out a unit or whatever it might be, check in with your learner. Ask them how they're doing.
And we should
Do
be
they like
doing
it?
this even if we're not comboing, right? But I
Exactly.
think especially
But it
when
can help you pivot your combo.
right, but especially when we're deviating from a standard, set curriculum that was kind of like made with a certain methodology and a certain flow and everything, and then we're kind of like putting in other things and we're mishmashing things up. It's especially good to check in with your learners and make sure that this is still working. And honestly, check in with yourself. if comboing this isn't working for you, it's really okay. You're not a bad parent or grandparent or anything. Like it's fine. I know these curriculums all look super cool. Believe me, I know. But we can't do everything.
Yeah.
So we do the best we can. And if comboing is right for you, I think that's great. And if it's not right for you, that's okay too. And if you want to just buy the curriculums to support the creators and you don't end up comboing in them at all, but you just love to look at them, that's also okay.
Or you just want the book lists. I
Right.
mean,
Because we're supporting people who are making great secular curriculum and we have not as many options as other types of homeschoolers. So I think we should always support them. So if you're going to use a book list from somebody, and I know a lot of these publishers do put it right on their website, like this is the book list for this, if we can support them with our dollars, we should.
Absolutely.
Because we want them to keep creating great things.
And
So-
also in those curriculums for $30 or so, the amount of projects and crafts and ideas, I mean, that's worth the wait in and of itself right there.
I really think it is. And, you can combining things, I think, is just another way of making the curriculum, personalized for you, your learner.
Make it work for you.
Yeah, make it work for you, and it's personalized learning. So I think it's totally great. Please don't let this episode be discouraging to you at all. But having done it several times, we just wanted to kind of come out and say, like, hey, these are some things to really think about and consider before you do it. It can make a totally rich and amazing study, and I'm glad the ones that we've comboed. I mean, obviously, I do them a little bit differently now. I've learned things, but I do. We will do prehistory again, and we will combo again, and I might, pare some things down so it's not quite as long, but I will probably do them again because it did work and I did really like it. But it's just.
Yeah.
We want you to kind of go in with your eyes open. If that's something that you want to do, feel free to email me. I've had several email chats with people who are like, I'm not sure if I should combo these. This is what I'm thinking. This is why I like it. And definitely the last thing I'd leave you with is don't combo because you're afraid that if you don't do it, you'll never get back to it, or you'll never learn it again, especially with our young learners. I'm always telling people, because they're like, well, should I do prehistory? I don't know. My learner's only going to be 5 or 6 or whatever, and I'm not sure if I should do it now. And it's like, they're not going to remember a lot of it. We're just, at this point, we're exposing them to things, especially when it comes to history and literature and things. So do the best you can. They're going to get back around to it when they get older. It's okay. Don't feel like you have to get it all in now. If you don't make this decision, if you skip some piece of the 4-year history cycle right now, or whatever it is, or there's this gap in the ancient history didn't cover these several peoples, they're never going to get this. They're going to come back to it. It's okay.
I think that's a gap. I think in our thinking, I think it's like a internet people versus post-internet people. Like, I think when we were kids, rote knowledge was an important thing.
I don't know. I just feel like we want to be comprehensive, right?
Well,
I want to be
them
comprehensive
to know,
with everything.
We want them to know a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of days now, it's less about knowing because it's so easy to go find that information. I think today we're thinking more critical thinking. We're thinking more skills. We're thinking more technology and stuff like that. We still want them to know things like, oh, there's 50 states and all these type of things.
I actually disagree with you on this.
Oh my gosh.
So I think that we should be thinking the things you're saying.
Sure.
But I think we know now what we didn't know then, right? If our parents were homeschooling us in the, late 80s, early 90s, and they pulled up a textbook or curriculum book they were going to use with us, they only know the things that tells them. We can go online now and go, hey, what's the major peoples of ancient civilizations, whatever, and then we can go look at the curriculum. Well, they did not cover the ancient Sumerians. Blah, 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 blah. We can be like, hey, this is missing something, right?
Sure.
And I think before we didn't know, so they had to just kind of go with what they had. I agree with you that we should be teaching critical thinking, but I think now it's like, Well, now we know. I know all these different curriculums and they all teach different pieces. Well, I want all the pieces. I want to be comprehensive, right? If we're going to do this, I want to do the whole thing. And I so feel that in my heart. I want to do all of it because I don't want my girls to miss anything.
I just want to say that,
so
I won the argument because Ariel, in your example, you had to use the exact skills that I said we should be teaching.
And I said to you that you're right. We should be doing those things.
Use the skills I think are most important to find the information.
I just don't think that that's what we are. I think oftentimes we lose that because we're valuing, the most information rather than like how we find the information. I want to be more like you, is what I'm saying. So you do win the argument, honey.
No,
you do win.
You win the argument. No, you. What was that dad joke? You said, "You're great," and he says, "No, you're great." And she goes, "Wow, it made me feel really good." And I always enjoyed, fixing your grammar. Remember, it's like a text message.
It doesn't work when you can't see it on the screen.
That's right. Your
dad joke doesn't work.
No, okay.
You have to see that there was a grammar error and that he corrected her grammar,
and she felt good all day, and
and he was really correcting her grammar. Yeah, it's a cheesy. You're gonna have to work on your dad jokes in the new year here, Booza.
Anyway, to be or not to be, or to combo or not to combo. Hopefully, this episode today helped you guys. Aid you in those decisions. I think comboing is something that inherently is done by a lot of homeschool families, whether in like a more substantial way with Around the World Journey, or if you're just trying to fill in gaps and you're trying to fill in holes and whatnot with additional workbooks and activities. We're always trying to combo, and in the act of comboing, we're trying to either enrich our experience or fill in gaps that we think our learners need. And I think it's a tool and a skill that I think we all have to cultivate if we want to be good and successful homeschoolers.
Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time.
Happy homeschooling!